Released in 1998 for the arcade and ported to the Sega Dreamcast in 1999, we have a game that needs little introduction with Dreamcast fans, and that is Soul Calibur by Namco. Let's pop it in the old Dreamcast and see how it holds up today. Soul Calibur is the second in the Soul Calibur series. The first game in the series was called Soul Blade or Soul Edge, depending on what continent you were living on. And it's a series that was very successful, even to this day. There was a recent Soul Calibur release not that long ago, titled Soul Calibur 4. But here we have the first of the Soul Calibur namesake in the series, which is actually the second in the series. And this game was fucking unbelievable. You gotta think back to, this is 1999, and you gotta see how crisp and clear the graphics are. YouTube is probably not doing it justice, but this thing is amazing.
Versus Ivy. Battle 1, fight!
Now, although Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast is technically a port of the arcade game, this is a very rare, unique situation. The arcade game had one type of mode you can play, and the Dreamcast had several different kinds of modes you can play. And the Dreamcast version was upgraded in many ways from the arcade cabinet model, including all the way down to graphics and sound. It was upgraded all the way around. So this is a very rare case where actually the home console port is a superior version to the arcade version. And you just don't see that. I can't think of any other examples where that is the case. But here you have it. You're looking at it right now. And it is fucking amazing.
This victory, strength, you win!
Now, back in 1999 when this was ported from the arcade, it was only ported to the Dreamcast. But now you're able to get a version for Xbox 360 via Xbox Live in the marketplace. And that Xbox Live version was released in 2008. And for all the video game purists out there, the Xbox Live downloadable version is identical to the Dreamcast version with two minor things. One is that all the unlockables are already unlocked right out of the package with the Xbox Live version, and the other thing is that it's set up for HD, so you can view it in HD, which is it's nice. Definitely be nice. You're looking at this in a non-HD format because it's from the Dreamcast, so it's hooked with just composite cables. And the video quality is absolutely amazing. Now, I won't get too much into gameplay other than to say that it's superb and very solid. Everything seems to do what you want it to do. It's very intuitive, and one of the best fighting games I've ever played. Controls are very nice. A few things have been changed from the previous game, Soul Blade or Soul Edge, but everything feels very familiar in the Soul Calibur series. Everything is functioning like it feels like it should. I will say that on the Dreamcast, you have an option to use the analog controller or the D-pad, and I felt that the D-pad was a bit more responsive with doing combinations of moves and button combinations. But I think that's just a matter of personal taste. Just take a look at how wonderfully detailed the backgrounds are. It's simply amazing. This game was really showing off what the Dreamcast could do, and it was extremely effective. The character modeling is extremely nice. I was shocked that everything wasn't blocky and polygon-esque like other early fighting games that I've revisited recently. You forget how smoothed over and refined graphics have become until you pop in some of these older fighting games, and you can see such a low polygon count and things of that nature. But this game really hides it well. It looks wonderful. Now, just by simply looking at this game and not knowing anything about it, it's not a surprise that this game was a #1 selling game in Japan. But it was also a #1 selling US game, and it was the #1 selling Dreamcast game released for the console. And there's a lot of accolades that go with this game that I'd like to get into for a minute. This game is actually considered by some sources to be the greatest home video game ever released out of all video games that were ever released to home systems. That's how well this game was received. There's a magazine in Japan called Famitsu that gave this game a perfect score, a 40 out of 40 points in the review. And that is significant because it was only one of 9 games ever to receive a perfect score from this magazine. And at the time this was released, it was only the second ever to actually receive a perfect score. That's how fucking hardcore this game is. Straight up and down, like 6 o'clock. The only thing that I consider a complaint about this game is that they never translated the Japanese dialogue out of Japanese except for some subtitles on the bottom. And it's not even a real complaint. I just think it's a little odd. But otherwise, this game is absolutely perfect. And just looking at this game, it's hard to believe that this wasn't released last year for the Xbox 360, but it was actually released 10 years ago, and for the Sega Dreamcast. I mean, it's just simply amazing. In fact, I've seen Xbox 360 games that have looked a lot worse than this. In fact, the only thing I can think of that's missing in this game is online multiplayer play. And the Dreamcast did have a modem. It was a telephone jack modem for dial-up service, but there was online gaming available for it, and this game did not have an online gaming function. So that's the only thing I can think of that would be missing. Here we've seen I've taken Sophatia all the way up to the final end boss. His name is Inferno. The arcade version of this game, which is what I'm playing the arcade mode, seemed a little bit short, but not terribly short. There's 8 stages, I believe, and I was able to rip through it fairly easily. And each time you rip through it with a different character and defeat the end boss, you get to unlock different things. So it gives you incentive to play through with the different characters, learn the different characters, and beat the game several times over. Now, like most other fighting games, it's much more fun to play against a live opponent rather than just playing the computer the whole time. That being said, in the single-player or multiplayer mode, this game has high replayability factors. It's an extremely fun, extremely good game. Now, although this game did sell very well for Dreamcast in the United States and abroad, the Dreamcast was not a very popular system outside of Japan. So selling very well still doesn't mean that there's a ton of copies floating on the shelves of every store. So you'll have to look around a little bit to find this game. And because of its popularity, I'm sad to say that retailers can charge a higher price than the average Dreamcast game. I picked this up recently, and I paid $18 for it, which I thought was high, but I knew it was a great game, so I just picked it up anyway. I sucked it up and shelled out the 18 clams, and it was well worth it. If you've never played Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast, you really owe it to yourself to pick up a copy if you have a Dreamcast. It really is the best game for the system, and it really shows off the features of the system itself. Now, if you don't have a Dreamcast, but you do have an Xbox 360 and online access, you can purchase it in the Xbox Live Marketplace. And if you're a fan of fighting games, I'd recommend even purchasing it for the Xbox 360. It is a fantastic game, tons of fun. It's definitely good stuff. I'm Dommy from Classic Games Revisited. Until next time.
The legend will never die.